You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of me.
Okay, so tonight we are going to do full-on 100% legit hacking. Up until now, we've been doing little playful things here and there, getting access to a machine we already knew we had access to, that was horribly misconfigured, and it's just not as realistic, right? It's good for some ideas of how things work, but now we're actually going to do a full-on real 100% hack. So to do this, first off, educational purposes only, right? Very important. Seriously, you can go to jail. All right, I'm done. I will quit. So this is where we start to learn some more tools, and the first tool that we all need to learn is going to be Tmux. Tmux is kind of it's a really great tool. It's not got anything to do with hacking at all, but it will make your life better. If you are used to having 15 different terminal windows and you're never quite sure which one's which, Tmux will solve that. Tmux also automatically saves SSH sessions when they go down. And the other cool thing is that a lot of administrators install Tmux even on the machines that they're working on, so you can still work in that environment. So with Tmux, it's simple, just Tmux. And now you hit Control B, and Shift 5 will split it down the middle. Control B, and then double quote will split it this way. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of all the commands, but Control B up, Control B over, right? So you can move around with arrow keys, type exit to close one out, right? So with that, you can set up something like this, which is what I tend to do when I'm going to be playing around, depending upon how I want my windows to be laid out. You can also hit Control B and hit space a few times, and you'll see that it will do some common layouts for you if you already have 3 windows open. If you have 2, it'll do that and all the other good stuff. So, anywho, looking at Tmux is really nice. It can help. But for the purposes of this program, we're going to just stick with this. So, the first thing we're going to learn, as you may have seen in the previous slide, is Netcat. So what is Netcat? Netcat is an advanced version of Telnet, essentially. When you type something, it's raw. Okay, so it's a raw streamed connection, and that's important to understand when I said the word streamed connection. Okay, it is a constant connection that will stream data back and forth. Okay, and in doing so, you can do some interesting things with Netcat that you may not think of at the moment. Okay, you know, a lot of these are covered in SANS courses. SANS has a wonderful cheat sheet when it comes to Netcat. SANS, if you don't know, they are the premier cyber and upper level computing platform. Well, kind of a college, I guess. SANS courses for a week run around $7,000. Their certifications run around $1,000 a pop, and you're expected to fail at least once. So, and it's like drinking from a fire hose when you're in their classes. I cannot recommend them enough. If you have the money, or if your company has the money, totally pay for it. Definitely worth it. I've done 3. Most of which, actually all of them, my company has paid for. So that all said, they're great. Their certifications hold a lot of weight. Anyway, off of that, no paid advertisement, promise. That was legit, really how I feel. So Netcat is done with NC. It could also be NCAT, okay, and I've also seen it Netcat. I think Kali actually has an alias for Netcat, but we'll do NC. Okay. And you can set up a listener on a port 222 or 2, whatever port you want, doesn't really matter. So Netcat now is listening, okay? And we're going to verify that by simply saying netstat dash tuple grep 2222. And there we are. So Netcat is now listening, and that is proof of that, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to kick over to this screen, and we're going to say netcat 127.0.0.1, okay, which is myself, basically, and port 2222. And it looks like nothing happens, and that's because the connection's established, okay? And to prove that, again, you can see that we have an established connection here. Both ways, because it's connected to ourselves, right? So we have established connection on these two processes, and notice that 2222 is talking to this ephemeral port, which is this guy, and then this ephemeral port, this guy, has an established connection back to this guy. Note that whenever you connect to a port, you're not connecting on the same port that you're trying to connect to. I mean, it technically could happen, I guess, but on the same machine, it's impossible because a process owns that port. Nothing else can touch that port. And that's why you have 65,000 ports. And I'm not exaggerating. That's actually like 65535, I think. So you have a ton of ports, and these upper ports, these ephemeral ports up here, they're ephemeral, meaning that they're mortal. They die, go away. They're not reserved for anything. Lower ports, like 0 to 1,000, those are considered service ports. So like 25, you automatically know that it's SMTP, right? 22 is SSH, and so on and so forth. Anyway, so what does Netcat do? Well, in this case, you can say hi, and it'll flip on the other screen. It actually is streaming what you type directly to the other side. And this is cool because you can transfer data without having to set up a server. It literally was a one line, and I'm done, and I'm listening instantly. And vice versa, yo, dog. Wait, I'm in the South, so it has to be spelled that way. Anyway, so you're like, yay, wonderful, you have a chat program. It's not just a chat program. The power behind Netcat is just fascinating. So we'll show a little more power in a moment. Okay. So one of the cool things about Netcat also is when the connection drops, the listening port turns off. And that's good because if you've got a listener open and you've compromised a machine and you've sent your data, you don't want to have to beat feet to your other server to turn it off. Because IR might be on your heels, incident response. They may be like, oh, look, cool, he connected to that server on port 2222. Let's see what we can do with it. Oh, it's not there anymore. It's disconnected instantly. So it can also bite you in the butt. Because there's times where, like, you connect up and you're like, oh, man, yeah. Like, if you scan it with like Nmap, right? And Nmap touches it, and then it goes, bye. And you're like, oh man, I gotta set it up again. Well, the good news is it's just one line. Now that all said, how can this be useful, right? So let's set up another listener, okay? But this time we're gonna output it to a file, output.txt. And let's say that we're going to send a file. So cat is literally streaming a file. It literally means just stream the file to the screen. And in this case, we're going to say on the desktop, there are these passwords that I've got, and I need to send them. So we're going to stream it and then pipe it to Netcat on port 2222. And it's going to look like nothing happens, and that's because it's done, but there's nothing to tell it to terminate. So down here, I suggest another tool called TCP Dump. But you got to be sudo to do it. So now we're actually watching this stream real time. And it's really nice for you to say port 2222 because then you're filtering, which is really nice. Okay, so you can filter just by doing that. We're going to cancel this connection. We'll go over here and we'll cat our output.txt, and look, there's all of our passwords. Okay, so let's set it up again. But what if it was like a large file, right? Maybe you need to compress that file. So you can do that on the fly with a command called compress, shockingly. And that can go to output.txt. Okay, and then on this side, we'd have to kind of do the same thing, right? So uncompress. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. We got to uncompress on this side. And then on this side, we're going to compress. -C. And then netcat. And we'll go back over here. Well, we'll cancel this. Okay. And go over here and let us output that. And there we go. So that compressed it on the fly. And that's helpful. Let's also do this. So TCP Dump, we'll get into that in a minute. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Actually, no, this is a good time to do TCP Dump, I think. So TCP Dump, or TCP Dump, not IP, is literally what it sounds like. It literally just hooks into your TCP IP connections and dumps them to stream. And normally that stream is your screen, right? And you can say interface ETH0. You can do things like port or dash port, I think, 80, right? Or maybe it's not. Maybe it is just port. There we go. So if we come up here and we say wget google.com, there we go. So we downloaded index.html, but here this actually has all of the traffic that went on with that. So it caught 40 packets. And that's all well and good, but how is that useful, right? You can't read that on the screen. It was way too fast. So let's write a file of desktop dump.pcap, because it does save it in a pcap fashion. Okay, and let's do the same thing again. Let's get that file. Now, notice nothing wrote down here, and we do have 35 packets captured. And look, we have a pcap right here. Let's open it with Wireshark. Let's open it with Wireshark. So file, open, desktop, dump. So here is our pcap. TCP Dump got this. Okay, which is awesome. We can actually look at the file. It's a hypertext protocol, right? We can see everything about it. Look, here's the actual file. Right here, ready to go. Plain text. Isn't that great? And you can do things like you can follow the TCP stream, and that gives you the full web page. So if a file was being sent across a packet or across a port, and you happen to capture that, then, and it's in clear text, and this is why we tell people, when you're on the internet, it's clear text unless you're actually using HTTPS. But if you notice, we're using HTTP. Okay, so it's not, it's not protected at all. So you can see here the entire file. So if you were to maybe send a password through here, we would see it, right? So this is why we tell people all the time, hey, make sure everything's encrypted, and this, that, and the other. All the headers are here. Now, if this was HTTPS, headers and everything about the connection is encrypted. So I'm not going to harp on it too much because I'm sure you guys probably know this. But anyway, so that's how you follow things, right? So now let's couple this data, right? This information we just figured out. Let's couple that with the ability to possibly do some nefarious things. So I'm going to clear out some screens real quick. I'm going to take a moment and have a taste of my frosty beverage. Okay. And so now the question is, what do we do with this newfound information? Well, really can't do much on our computer because, I mean, we already know all of our information, right? But we can take a packet dump, right? And we know how to send files back and forth with Netcat. But there's some other things you can do with Netcat that are amazing. And then I promise we'll do something even more fun in a moment. So Netcat can also, it can do any stream, okay? Any stream at all. And I'm wondering how many people are like, and where are you going with this? I'll show you where I'm going. So there is a machine on my network, okay, 10.10.50.14. Okay, so this machine here is a server that is on my network. It's not Kali, if you notice. My IP is this, okay, 107. And this is a Debian server. It has SSH open, and that's it. Okay, so let's see. How do I want to do this? Allow me to ponder on the best way to present this type of data. Okay, I've pondered. So I'm going to show you a way to break into the system. But we're going to do this with the same, just ignore the fact that I'm connected with SSH. Okay, because there's some cool things you can do with Netcat that SSH would kind of take the place of, but it's possible that the server you break into may not have SSH installed. And you don't want to install a service. So that's where Netcat shines. If the server you've popped doesn't have SSH open, then, or installed, right? Maybe it's some weird security thing they've got somehow, or whatever, I don't know. But if they don't have SSH open, or it's not open on that particular port, and you don't want to mess around with doing that, you can throw up a Netcat, and we can do things with Netcat, and I'll show you what you can do in a moment. So let's say we have access to a server. Okay. And let me get on that server over there. Let me make sure I can... Let me write quickly here. I got to leave that up because I've got too many numbers in my head. So, okay, good. We can talk to it. That's important. So now what we're going to do is we're going to establish a Netcat listener on port 2222. Right? Same port. And on the other server, let me SSH into that guy. That ain't gonna work. Okay, so this is our test machine, as the name implies. So we can talk to Kali, and now we can do things like Netcat, right? 10.10.50.107, port 2222. And test, and there you go. So the two can communicate, which is great. However, let's do this backwards. Netcat listener port 2222 dash execute bash. So guess where this is going? Netcat 10.10.50.104 on port 2222. And now we're connected. Okay? And now we can do things like ls. And oh my, what is this? This is Netcat on the other end, actually taking bash, the shell, and streaming it through Netcat. So you can do things like present working directory. Now, of course, you don't have the pretty font. You don't have the pretty prompt right here. But you do have all the commands available. So you know you're en route, right? So maybe we do a look in root and we see that there's not an SSH folder here. So maybe we make a directory of .ssh, right? And now when we run, whoops, that isn't going to work. Now when we run that, we see we have .ssh. So maybe now what we do is we look to see if we have SSH keys. Somebody already knows where I'm going with this. So maybe I have an SSH key for my Kali box here, and I copy that. And now I come here and I say echo that data to .ssh authorized keys. Well, let's just do there. And there's our authorized keys, and it is set up, ready to roll. So now, if we wanted to, we could just double check this. I tell you, you do not know how much you really miss tab completion until you can't use it. So there is our Kali box. So now SSH 10.10.50.104, and we can't log in as ourselves. We got to log in as root. Boom. I'm now connected through SSH to the machine, and I did it all through Netcat. So that's one way, right? There's hundreds of different ways this could have gone. And honestly, I've seen people upload, like they've, for instance, found a vulnerable PHP application, right? And they install a web shell, right? And then they set up a Netcat listener so they can just go ahead and start typing commands and do things without going through that. I may do that later. I'm not sure, just to prove the concept. But there we go, right? I logged in without even knowing root's password. I don't know the password. If you notice, I didn't have to type in root's password because my authorized keys were already there for the root user. And my Netcat session's still up. So, you know, I've got 2 connections now to that box. But this, of course, is a little more friendly. So, yeah, you can do some fun stuff. Let's remove that. And then when I disconnect, you'll note that it's going to ask me for a password, and it's not going to work. Because I don't know the password to that. Well, I mean, I do, but we're going to pretend I don't. So my Netcat's still up. We're going to cancel that, clear it. Right now, the cool part is that if we go over here to this terminal, you'll notice it automatically closed. So the established connection's gone. Nobody knows what happened, right? And Netcat, let's see. Do you see in here where I pasted that key? Do you see any of the commands that I typed? You don't. And the reason is you went through Netcat, the program. And because it streamed it directly to bash without a TTY, none of the commands are in here. So they have no idea what happened, except they know that at some point somebody set up a Netcat listener. So, and you can tell that obviously I've been practicing and playing to make this video a little more user-friendly. Anyway, so that's one way, right? Now let's pretend, even more so, that I have no way of getting into that machine, right? I didn't, because I mean, I still had to come over here. I had to log into the box to do the Netcat listener to connect with the remote, right? So let's see how that would work in a real environment. So Nmap, which is amazing, right? Well, 22. you can fire scripts. And I know I've talked about Nmap a little bit before. And we see the services open, right? And we can even do things with Nmap that a lot of people don't know you can do with scripts, such as script SSH brute, right? And then script args. You don't have to do the slash. I just do it because of habit. You know what? We won't even do that. We gotta tell it where to go. 50.104, right? And what's going to happen now is it's going to actually start trying different passwords automatically on SSH, and it will crack its way in, or at least try to. This is why I tell people you need to put fail to ban on your machines. Okay, because of this kind of stuff right here. It's not hard, and you can see it's just hammering away. And I'm getting a ton of auth failures on the other side, but nobody knows. I don't have anything set up. I don't have any alarms going off or anything. And you can see the passwords just keep rotating out. And you can set arguments to it. You can say use this password list, use that user list. And that's good. Nmap's great at that. But there's another one that's automatically included with Kali, and that's Hydra. Hydra is awesome because of the fact you can do things like this and say, I want to specify my user of root, and I want the password list that you use to be something like, now Kali comes with a lot of word lists, Metasploit, Unix passwords, right? And I want 6 threads, which is something Nmap can't do, and hit this IP and slam that joker offline. Actually, it's not going to hit it offline. It's just going to do its thing, right? And so Hydra will start attacking that over and over and over again, 6 threads at a time until it gets it. And it's not going to fill up my screen with a bunch of trash either. So it also keeps where you're at in a session file. So you can resume right where you were if you want to stop for a little bit and come back and watch it. Right. I'm going to go ahead and remove that file because I'm going to show you similar, but we're going to choose a different password list because I don't want to sit here all day, and I'm sure you don't either. On my desktop, you'll notice there's a users file and a passwords file. Okay, that passwords file has a good number of passwords in there. Okay, it has an okay amount, right? It's not really great, honestly. I know a guy who has literally he has like a 20 gig password file now. It's ridiculous. Basically, whenever IAMPone comes out with a password list, he goes and grabs it. He just adds to it and dedupes every single time. So that's one way to do that. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go to our desktop and we're going to say passwords. So I have 24 passwords in that list. What we're going to do now is we're going to specify that password list here and go. And it's going to attack. And it should have been done by now. Why is it not done? There it is. There we go. It popped. So there's the root password for it. There's also an administrator on this list. Oh, look, there's the password for that one. So Hydra is a little faster than Nmap by far, and it's much easier to output. So now we've cracked the password, right, with just a word list. It's not like we've actually done brute force. We've just done a word list. And now what we can do is we can SSH as root or administrator or whatever to that machine. And we already know the password now, which is ASDF, ASDF. And now we're in. So here's something else we could do. And I'm going to pause for a moment, take a sip of my frosty beverage, and be right back. Okay, so now we've got access to the machine, right? We're as root. And is Tmux installed? No, it's not. That's upsetting. Okay, so on this machine here, right, we're going to go ahead and just clear our screen because we are on our victim, right? We're on our test victim. And we're going to now we're going to create an implant on the fly that will steal all their data without them knowing it, maybe. So using the tools that we've discussed already, we're going to do this. We're going to set up a Netcat listener, right, on port 2222, and we're going to output this to dump.pcap, okay, and let's make this on the desktop, just for fun. So that is now listening, okay. Now we can do, we're already root, so TCP dump, right? And we're going to dump everything out to pipe. And I've not actually tested this. Let me see if this works before I go and tell you something that doesn't work. Hey, guess what? It actually does work. I was right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, like I said, we're going to put an implant on this machine that will automatically send us all their network traffic. So we're going to do a listener on port 2222. We're going to output that to the desktop, and we're going to call that dump.pcap, right? And now that file is sitting there doing nothing. And then on this side, we're going to simply say TCP dump, pipe it to Netcat on port 2222, which is going to send it over to our Kali box, and it's going to sit there. So now we can leave this running, right? I mean, there's a chance that, you know, someone would know that we're connected up. But if we go to our desktop and we tail our dump file here, we'll see that there's nothing, right? Because the person hasn't done anything yet, and we're going to follow that. So now what we'll do is we'll say, okay, wget twitter.com. So you see where I went to Twitter, right? And you can actually watch traffic as it's going. Let's do something really fun. Let's scan the Kali box. Oh, Nmap isn't installed. Poop. That's okay. We can do something else with Netcat. That is another thing we can do. Netcat and port 20 through 100, 10.10.50.104. I know you can't see what I'm typing. Oh, poop. It's being a butt. So I'm done. Just 1 second here. You can actually use Netcat as a port scanner, basically. So you can see ARP commands and everything else. So we can actually, right now, let's say that the administrator of this box, right, they came home and they were like, man, what is going on? I've got this rogue process, and I don't know what this is going, and they kill this process. So the cool thing is this automatically disconnects, right? And this PCAP here, we've got all the data. That doesn't work. I don't know why. I think it works, but it doesn't. So we open our dump file that we just created. What? Why didn't it like it? It works, right? Oh, it must be broken. That must be what it is. Yeah. So if they broke it, then it would be broken and it wouldn't know what's going on. But essentially, you get the idea. I could set it up again, I guess. But that's how you can stream other data and steal it, which is pretty interesting. We're almost on time. I'm going to see if I can squeeze in one last thing about Netcat. Okay, so with Netcat, we're going to use it as a port scanner, okay? Because this machine here does not have Nmap installed. Okay, Kali does, this doesn't. And this isn't Kali, it's Debian. So how can we scan the network to find what's on this machine? Now we can do things like netstat, right, tuple, and look at, oh, that's not even installed. So I can't really install it because if I do, I'm going to tip my hand that I'm in this machine. So instead, let's echo nothing and pipe that to Netcat. Verbose. Do not look up machine names and whatnot. And we'll say 104. Sure. We'll scan ourselves. Why not? And we'll say port 20 through 100. So there you go. That's it. We have one open port. Let's see. So again, unknown, but the service is open. That's Minecraft, by the way. It's about Minecraft server. So we can use Netcat as a rudimentary port scanner if you're on a machine that doesn't have the capability of doing port scans. I mean, granted, you could sit there and try to communicate, with Telnet or anything else and just hit it constantly, but NCAT accepts a range. So you can fire at a range of ports and just walk away and come back and find out what's open, which is helpful. And of course, TCP Dump, don't let this go by the wayside in your knowledge, because you can do amazing things. Because you can do like ands, right? And port equals 80 and port 53, right? So now we're watching all port 80 and port 53 traffic. And well, actually, we're also seeing SSH. I don't know why we're seeing SSH so much, but that's actually the SSH thing there. So maybe it's because I didn't. Maybe I do that. There we go. That's more correct. So we're getting all of it and port 53. And I don't think that's actually correct. I'm going to have to, let me look that up because that bothers me. I want to say that you can use ands. You can use ands, but I think you can do it that way too. And you can do things like destination port, right? And so you only see destination DNS lookups, and you only see, you know what? Here, we'll prove it. Let's get Twitter again. Oh, I'm on. Yeah, that didn't work. Anyway, you get the idea. That bothers me. So much does that bother me. Let's say destination port that. Okay, do your thing. There we go. So you can see all the DNS traffic going out. And I could have sworn you could do port 443. Oh, you can't do that. And port that. Rejects all packets. Why? Interesting. Anyway, play around with it. It's been a while since I've actually done TCP dump in a thing other than just saying, oh, look, data's walking, and then I left. So you can do some advanced filtering and whatnot with them. There are cheat sheets out there for it. yeah, so we're on time. We're 40 minutes in. This is probably the best I've done on a video, honestly. So here we go. That's everything. That's a full-on engagement. We'll do some more different techniques and ways to get in, but we've gone over some really nice stuff. You know how to do dumps and things of that nature. And by the way, I've actually worked investigations where someone actually did do exactly what I just did, where they actually used TCP dump, dumped all traffic to the machine, and then netcatted it out. Well, they didn't really netcat it out. There was a web server on the box, so they just dumped it to the web server, and then they deleted all their logs. So the good news is that they didn't wipe the free space, so I was able to recover those logs and find out who they were, and bad things happened to them. But anyway, again, 100% educational use only. Do not try to attack a system that you don't own or have permission to do so, and get that permission in writing. Anyway, hope this has been a good one for you. See you on the next one.